Nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi, nice to meet you too, Val. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited for this talk. And are you ready to get started with the questions?
Absolutely. I'm just going to drink some tea as we go.
Okay, all right, no problem. So my first question is, how did you start working for Disney?
I started working for Disney when I was 18. The way I started was by auditioning. I think when I was a junior in high school, I found out that being a Disney princess was a real job, and I put it on my life bucket list to be a Disney princess, like an official Disney princess. And I started auditioning the summer after I graduated high school. And I think I went to a total of 7 auditions before I booked something with Disney. And I was auditioning for everything. It was like Disney World character performers, all the other Disney parks, the equity shows, like anything I could get my hands on. And then, yeah, I think it was in December of 2015. Yes, it was when I officially got the call. And I moved down a couple of weeks later in January of 2016.
Wow, and that was for character performer, right?
Yes, that was for character performing at Disney World.
Okay, and what are auditions like, character performer versus equity show?
Yeah, so they're very different. They require very different things, a kind of a different skill set. Character performer auditions typically consist of 3 different things, and several rounds of lots of things. But typically, you could see 1 or all 3 of these at a character performer audition. You may have a dance portion, a type out where you stand there and they look at you and you smile and then they make a cut from there, and also an animation portion. So that's Disney's own, like no other audition, probably anywhere ever, will ever ask you to do animation, but it's their way of describing like kind of character miming to see if you could be one of their branded sculpted characters like Mickey or Minnie or Goofy, the ones that wear like the heads and aren't fully costumed. So yeah, so character performer auditions can consist of a lot of different rounds. And then equity auditions, depending on what you're auditioning for. If it's a show that you'll be singing in, you typically go in and you bring your own 16 or 32 bar cut of a song that you like to sing. You sing it for them, and then they'll typically email you later that day or a couple days later if they want to invite you in for a callback. And you go and you do a callback. There might be, sometimes there's only 1 callback, sometimes there's maybe like 2. And then if you're in, and then you'll find out if you book the job or not. And then if it's for a show where you'll be dancing, they'll typically do a dance portion as well. Most of the time they'll do that in the callback. Like if it's for Finding Nemo the musical, for example, where you're singing, acting, and dancing, you'll go in, you'll sing your song, and then if you get a callback, that's when they'll have a dance portion. And I believe if you're called back for one of the principal characters as well, like Nemo or Marlin or Dory, they'll have you sing some songs from the show as well. But when I was in that show, I was in the ensemble, and I don't think we sang anything else in the callback. I think we just had to do the dance call, if I remember correctly. So yeah, and then for acting, for the equity, just straight acting shows where you're not singing or dancing, they'll typically give you a monologue ahead of time that you bring in, prepare, and perform for them. So yeah.
Nice. Did you get to improvise in the equity shows, or is that just for character performing?
Yeah, equity shows, there's almost no improvisation except if it's built into the show. I was never in a role where I was allowed to do improv in any of the shows that I was in. But for example, in Frozen Sing Along, where I was Anna in that show, I wasn't allowed to improv, but a lot of the historians, like the narrators, they're allowed to improv. And then Hoop-Dee-Doo Review, the like dinner show and stuff, that was one that I always wanted to be in, but I never got to be in. That one, they improv a lot of it because they play improv songs. So they like go around and they ask people where they're from, and then they like rhyme with like where those people are from. And it's like built into the show that they do musical improv, and it's really cool. But I never got to do any of those for the equity shows.
Nice. And you were also in Mickey's Friendship Fair. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was a huge honor. I was a part of the opening cast, which was really, really cool. I didn't expect it at all. I was, at that point, I had been working for Disney for 4 months as a character performer. And they had a like in-house, like, you know, within the company, you were allowed to audition if you were already approved in one of the characters that was going to be in the show. You were allowed to like go to this audition and show them that you were interested, and we did some little dancing and stuff, and yeah, and they cast me in that show, which I was very honored. I still have, we got cast jackets that say like opening casting crew, and it says my name and everything, so that felt really special to get to be a part of that. And like we also got to help workshop it too. So there were a lot of renditions that we went through of the finale number, because I'll tell you a secret. Well, it's not that big of a secret, but so Frozen is like its own entity. So it's different than like the Disney Princess brand. It's like, it's either Disney Princesses or it's Frozen. And because the Frozen clan was in Mickey's Royal Friendship Fair, we weren't allowed to be pictured too closely to other characters. So we would rework the finale where like everybody comes out, like the Tangled section, the Princess and the Frog section, and then us. We would rework that a ton of times because they would record it, they would send it. We call them the Frozen police. They would send it to like the Frozen police, or the people who are you know, in charge of the Frozen brand, and they would say like, no, Anna, Elsa, and Olaf are too close to Rapunzel and Flynn, or like they need to be over here, or they need to do that. So we had to rework the end of that a lot because of Frozen being a part of it.
Oh my gosh, I never would have imagined there would be like Frozen police.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and what was training for being a princess like?
It was, well, one, it was a ton of fun. It was very, very detailed, very in depth. They really have a specific idea of the brand that they want you to uphold, which makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of respect for the way that they trained us. And another fun fact, they do training differently depending on like what park you're working at. Not like at Disney World, how there's like Animal Kingdom, whatever. It's just like Disney World as a whole. But if you're being trained at Disneyland, that's typically different. If you're being trained for Disney Cruise Line, for one of the parks over in Europe or Asia, they do all their trainings a little bit differently. I personally am biased towards Disney Cruise Line because I think they, just from my experience, I just love the way that they trained us. And yeah, but anyway, so training was essentially for princesses, for faith characters, we would like watch the movie, and we would stop after every line that your character would say, and then we'd have to repeat it. And it wasn't necessarily like the whole movie or every single line, but it was to help us understand the inflection and the way that our character talked, because they never expected you to be a complete replica of that character. It was never like, we need you to sound exactly like Kristen Bell when you're Anna. But they wanted you to at least get her like inflections and everything, but still using like your authentic voice, so it still sounds real and stuff. And we would learn how to storyline and how to improv basically, and everything is very story based. So it has to be, everything that we talk about has to be something within our story of Frozen, for example. So if someone came up and mentioned Star Wars or Harry Potter or something, like even if it was under the Disney umbrella, if it wasn't a part of Frozen, we didn't really know what it was. And the only exceptions to that were other princesses. Like if someone was like, oh, Moana or Cinderella, like we couldn't bring them up on our own. But if someone was like, do you know Cinderella? Like, the way that the way that it was explained to me is like, we know, like we know of the other kingdoms, the other princesses and stuff, but we're not like besties. We don't hang out all the time, but we definitely like know them, like them, understand who they are. But we're not allowed to go on a full storyline out of the blue of like, oh, me and Cinderella love to go try on glass slippers, and then we go down to Wandering Oakens to do this. Like, they can't be incorporated into our storyline. But if someone is like, do you know Cinderella? It's like, oh yeah, you know, like, she's wonderful. Oh, you know what that reminds me? We should all go, you know, to the Ice Palace, you, me, Olaf, and Elsa, and we'll have a friend day or something. You know, you just kind of acknowledge it, and then you start talking back about your story. And then we also learned how to do the poses, how to do our makeup. Every character has very specific colors and placement that they are supposed to use for eyeshadow and blush and everything, and lip colors. So they teach us how to do that. They get our wig sizes. We figure out what costume sizes we are, and figure out all of the poses and everything, and just kind of how to handle tricky conversations and things that we might be asked. And yeah, and then we have a couple days where we're doing that in front of guests, like kind of short little bursts where and our trainer will be watching us and taking notes, and we learn how to do the signatures. And then after that, you're out on your own.
Oh my goodness. And what was you mentioned training with Disney Cruise Line. So what was different about their training that you liked?
So for Disney Cruise Line, I wasn't a character performer when I did Disney Cruise Line. So I never got fully trained as like a character. Well, actually, that's a lie. So my story with Disney Cruise Line, I was hired to be a main stage principal performer. So I was like Rapunzel and Tangled Musical, and I was in all of the shows that were in like the big theater. And that was my main role. And then they did cast me. They typically, for the current, or for that contract that I was doing where we go to Europe, we spend 1 week in Scotland, and they bring out Merida for that Scotland trip. And it's just like 1 week out of the whole 9 months that I was on the ship. So they always ask a main stage performer to be that extra character, because all of the other character performers already have their characters, and would like there's no one left over to do a character for a week. So so they asked me to do that, which was super fun. So I got dialect training, and I'll say the differences that I experienced, and it might have been a more sped up process because, like, one, I had already been trained in character performing at Disney World, and also it was just the stakes were a little less high because I would only be out for a week. But essentially, I just learned, like, you know, the different parts of Merida's story. I did a lot of dialect coaching with a professional coach for the Scottish accent, and like learned her poses and her signature and everything, and just did some practicing, like going back and forth for like fake little interactions, seeing if like what I was saying made sense or if that was what they were looking for. And that was essentially the training. So it's probably like cut in half than what I normally would have gotten at Disney World.
I see. And what were rehearsals like for Tangled the Musical?
Yeah, rehearsals were so fun. So it was interesting because so much of that show, Tangled the Musical, is has all these technical elements with like the hair and like the sets and everything. There's so much, we call it hairography, of like doing jump rope with the hair and running around the set with it and stuff and putting it places. Like, we couldn't do all of that in rehearsals. We rehearsed in Toronto in a really beautiful rehearsal studio that they have there. So it was kind of like filling in the blanks in my mind of like, okay, well, once we get to the ship, like, this is what they told me it's going to be like, but you don't really know until you get there. We did have like practice braids that I would use, but they're not like the same thing. But yeah, rehearsals were super fun. I think we learned Tangled in maybe like a week and a half, I would say. And that show is really involved, like, because even when that show is probably the hardest show on the Disney Magic to do, because even for ensemble members, like when they're not on stage, they're doing something off stage to like prep the set for the next scene, or doing these crazy costume changes. Like everyone that whole show is just running around. Like I didn't really have a second to breathe when I was backstage. So, you know, they'll talk. That's another thing that's like, you don't really know what that's going to be like until you get to the ship and start rehearsing it on the stage with everything. But they kind of talked us through that in rehearsals in Toronto. And yeah, the hardest part was probably learning I've Got a Dream, because that whole number had, well, either I've Got a Dream or When She Returned. No, it was probably I've Got a Dream, for me at least. Because that number has a ton of cast members in it, and there's a lot of choreography, which is like super fun. But yeah, a lot of choreography, a lot of like doing stuff with the braids, so like doing that, and there's a lot of like throwing things that are timed, so like people have to learn to catch it and like do all this stuff. So yeah, that's a little insight, I guess, into how that looked.
What was your favorite scene to do in Tangled the Musical?
Oh, my favorite scene. I love, okay, my favorite part. It's so hard to choose. Okay, my favorite scene that I think at the time I would always say that this was my favorite scene was When She Returns, which is a song that's not in the movie, but it has a lot of the underscoring that is in the movie during like the Kingdom Dance and stuff, when Flynn and Rapunzel are visit Corona for the first time. That song was my favorite because I didn't have to do anything. I just got to sit and watch essentially and just react. And so it was a nice break for me. But it also was just really fun to watch everyone else like dance, and like everyone has their own little bits that they make up in that song. And so it's fun just to watch like the cast that I, you know, grew really close to, just like having fun and acting. And then of course, like at the end of the song, like I join into the dance and we do the whole big like weave where we're all going around the fountain, and like I bump into Flynn, and it's like, so, you know, it's kind of like romantic and cute, and I'm supposed to be, you know, all shy, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just it's uplifting. So performing that song felt very uplifting just to watch and then like be a part of.
And what was your favorite location to visit while on contract?
Ooh, that's another tough question. We went to so many cool places. We went to 25 different countries. That's so hard. Okay, one of my favorite places was, I'll give you like my top two. I really loved visiting Sweden, because I'm Swedish, but I'd never been to Sweden before. And we went to oh gosh, what's the capital of Sweden? I like lose track of everywhere we went. I keep wanting to say St. Petersburg, but that was Russia. Stockholm. We went to Stockholm, Sweden, and that was just really beautiful. And it did make me feel a little bit like, oh, like this is like where like I'm from. Like this is my heritage. These are my people. And like a lot of people would come up to me and they like assumed that I spoke Sweden. They assumed that I was Swedish. And so that felt really cool, where I was like, oh. And I had similar experiences in Iceland too, where like, because of my blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, like a lot of people, you know, when I would buy something from the shop, they would just start talking to me, and I think they speak Icelandic. I don't really know. But they would just start talking to me in their native language, and I'm like, oh, sorry, like I don't speak that language. But yeah, Iceland was also really, really beautiful. Definitely would go to both of those places again.
That's awesome. And so what princess do you identify the most with?
Anna, for sure. When I saw Frozen, I think it came out in 2013, so I was like a sophomore in high school, and I watched it. I have an older sister named Alexa, and she is pretty much the Elsa to my Anna. We have a very similar story of like just kind of our sister dynamics growing up, and then both becoming adults and like kind of figuring out like, oh, like you were trying to do this and like I was trying to do this, and it just was clashing. And just Anna in general, her spirit and her mannerisms and her willingness is kind of, I relate to all of that. So she definitely is the most like me.
Nice. And what was a day in your life like? You can either describe a cruise line or the character performing.
Cruise line is probably a little more interesting because it's just so different since I'm like living where I work. But essentially for cruise line, I would wake up. I had my own little, I had my own cabin that I didn't have to share. So I had my own bathroom and everything in there. I would wake up. A lot of the times I might have a greeting shift. So on cruise line, they call character attendants greeters. So when you're main stage, you are a greeter for at least for up to 7 hours a week. So honestly, not like a ton, but I would go and I might have, we called it, what did we call it? It was not princess meeting. It was like princess something. I can't remember, but it was basically the time we had a couple for every cruise itinerary. We had a couple days, a couple mornings where we would have all of the princesses come out into the atrium, and you had to reserve like a special ticket. It didn't cost anything, but you just had to like sign up to go to the event. And each princess would have their own greeter, and like people go through the line and see each princess one by one. So that I would do, like I'd get up, I'd have to change into my all white uniform, like a polo and like white khaki shorts and my white tennis shoes, and put my name tag on and go and do Princess Gathering. That's what it was called, Princess Gathering. We'd call it PG. Go do that for maybe like an hour and a half or so and greet one of the princesses. And then after that, I might go get breakfast at the crew mess, or depending on what time it was, maybe go get lunch. And depending on where we were in the world, I would get off the ship pretty much every day that I could. If I wasn't going to go do something like super fun, I would just go and find a Starbucks just so I can have free Wi-Fi. And kind of hang out in there. A lot of times, like, or there would be times that guests would like find us in the Starbucks, and we kind of be like, why aren't you guys like enjoying the city? Like, why aren't you, and it's like, well, we've been here 8 times and I haven't talked to my parents in a few days, so I need some internet. Like, so they never like, it's one of those things that you wouldn't think about unless you were living on the cruise ship, of just like, yeah, it's nice just to have a day where I'm not fully touristing it outside, like on top of all the work that I'm doing inside. And then I would come back, probably take a nap, take a shower or something, and then start getting ready for the show that night. And I would start doing my vocal warm up. I like to do all my makeup in my room, and then you make it to backstage by your call time. You sign in, you do a mic check, you start getting dressed and do your wig prep, put your wig on. And then you do a show, and then you have a dinner break, and I would leave all my wig prep in and all my makeup on and stuff, and I would go down to the crew mess. I normally would put like a ball cap on over my wig cap and go down to the crew mess, eat dinner with my cast, and then go back up, do the last show. And then after that, I might go to the cruise store where we could get like soda or candy bars or snacks, or kind of just like little things, and depending on where we were in the world, it like would change. So we had like European snacks when we were in Europe and stuff, so that was really cool. And then coming back to the last 3 months we were back around the US, and so we had like Cheetos and Doritos and like Coke products and stuff, which like I had missed. So that was fun, just like seeing what was in the cruise store. So I would go there, get some snacks from the cruise store maybe, and then go back to my room and either like hang out with friends or have a nice little quiet night, watch all the free Disney movies that are on my TV, and go to sleep.
Nice. And you were also in Voyage of the Little Mermaid, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was so that was one of the shows that I had been wanting to do at Disney World for a really long time. I had left, so at the time, I'm not sure if it's still this way, but to work for Disney Cruise Line, I had to separate from Disney World. So I had to quit my job at Disney World so I could work for Disney Cruise Line. Um, so once I was done with Disney Cruise Line, I technically was not employed by Disney at all. And I didn't intend on going back to Disney World. Once I had left the first time, I was like, I think I'm done. And I was planning on moving to New York. And I got off the ship in December of 2019. So you may see where this is going. And then a couple weeks later, I got a call from Disney World, from one of the casting directors there, that they were looking for someone to cover like just 2 months of a full-time contract for Ariel and Voyage of the Little Mermaid. And they were like, would you be willing to submit? And I was like, absolutely, I would love to. So I sent in a self-tape for that and ended up booking it. I went and I was like, you know what, I guess I'll do this, like, because I think it would be like 3 months total with like rehearsals and then the 2 months of performing it full time. So that would be like 4 or 5 days a week. And then, yeah, so then, and then I was like, well, after those 3 months, I'll just move to New York. So I started rehearsals, I think in February of 2020. I did my like 2 weeks of rehearsals, and then I think I got 2 or 3 weeks into my 2-month contract, and that is when COVID hit and shut everything down. So I never got to finish that contract. That show has still not reopened. It has been 3 years, which is crazy. But that show definitely was a dream come true. I'll be completely honest, like the show itself, I loved being a part of it because I just wanted to sing Part of Your World for like the official Disney company, because that's a song I've been singing since I was a kid. But the show itself, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I loved everyone that was in it and everything, but like it was just a tired show. It was never supposed to be there for like the 20 years that it was there. And it was just a little outdated. Like there were just moments where I was like, oh, I wish like we could do this or like this. And I was kind of in the camp where I was like so grateful to like have this opportunity, have this job, of course. But like as a Disney lover, I would have loved to have seen them either revamp that show or put in a fully new show similar to like Mickey and the Wondrous Book or something, Magical Book. I don't know, like where some of the other like parks around the world have like a show where like all of the princesses come out and sing a little song. Like I would have loved to have seen something like that be put there. So ultimately being in the show was very fun, very much a dream come true. It was a pretty easy show to be a part of. Like I think my shifts were like maybe 4 hours long, and that was with like 45 minutes of getting ready in the beginning. And then I would do like 7 shows in a shift, but they were like every 21 minutes or something. So it was kind of just like boom, 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 boom. You do like 3 and then have lunch and then do 4. And yeah, and I mean, I would just get to sit and sing, and then the end, you know, I stand and get picked up. So it was pretty easy, pretty short show. And a lot of fun.
And what were your shifts like when you were a character performer in Disney World?
Yeah, so character performing in Disney World, my shifts, depending on what I was doing, they were typically around 8 hours long. So there was a point in time when I was a character performer where I was cast in Mickey's Royal Friendship Faire, which Disney has all of these weird jargons that like, unless you work for the company or around people that use them all the time, like a lot of times people are like, what? But basically being cast in a show, so like it's different than like learning the show and being like, you know, trained in it. Being cast in a show means like, okay, we want you and this other person to do it full time. So like I had 3 days there for this first summer. No, not the first summer. I think it was the second. I think it was like the fall through like the spring or something. So I was there 3 days a week, and then the other girl was there 4 days a week. And if one of us couldn't do it, then one of the other girls who was trained in the show would like go in and step in for us. So I would, if I was doing that, I would like go in, well, sorry, this is like kind of chaotic. I'm like, so whether I was doing the show or I was doing meet and greets, my morning routine was always the same. So I would go in, I would pull my costumes. So you pull your own costumes, like you share with everyone else, and they like clean and wash everything. But I would go in and like they have, you know, all of the Anna skirts, all of the tops, all of the bodices, whatever, in different sizes. So you go and pick out the sizes that are yours. So collect everything you need for your costume that day. Go and collect your wig. And it's the same thing with wigs, like depending on, they like group them by size and stuff, and you as a character performer like will know your size wig, so you grab your size wig, whatever one you want off the shelf, and yeah, and then you sit in this big cosmetology room with the rest of the girls or just people, whoever's getting ready for their shift that day. You sit in there in your character basics. For Anna, I would wear the little like bluish green bloomers that she wears underneath. I would wear my socks and my boots, and then I'd wear this white v-neck sweater, v-neck like cotton shirt that they provided for us, and that was just to protect our costume and everything in case like we spilled any makeup or something. So that's what I would wear whenever I wasn't on stage or doing meet and greets. If I was just hanging out backstage, I would wear that strange little outfit with my wig and everything. And so that's what I wore to put my makeup on, and did my wig prep, put my wig on, and then I would costumes and everything to my location for that day. So if I was at the show, I would go up to our little green room, put all my stuff there. And then for meet and greets, we started out at Princess Fairy Tale Hall in Magic Kingdom, and then we moved to the new location in Epcot, where they still are at the Summer House. So if I was in Epcot, I would have to walk across the way, and it was in, if you've ever been to Epcot and you know the ride Test Track, there's a portion of it that comes outside, kind of, you can see into the backstage area of just like backstage Epcot. And so where I had to walk from the cosmetology room to our backstage green room area for character meet and greets in Epcot, I would be in the line of sight of guests. So we had to wear, they're called babushkas, that like little, basically like little like handkerchiefs over our heads, and like tie them over our wigs so like people wouldn't be able to see who we were, that we were characters and stuff. Yeah, just in case they happened to like look over, and it would have been pretty hard for them to like see us, but they just wanted to take every precaution so you wouldn't just see a bunch of princesses not in full costume backstage. So I'd put on that, walk across the way, like hang up my costume, hang out, eat a snack until it was my time to get dressed. And about like 5 minutes before my set or my show was about to start, I would put all my costume pieces on and go do the thing. And then whenever I'd come off stage or come back from doing meet and greets, I would get back into my basics outfit. I would take off my bodice and my skirt, and I'd leave my boots and my bloomers on and put on my white shirt again and leave my wig on and just chill until you're done for the day. You go put everything back where it came from, essentially. And they ask you to remove all of your makeup before you leave, which I did sometimes. It just depended. But I would always take off my red eyebrows. But Anna's makeup is so natural. It's basically just like brown eyeshadow and lipstick and blush, where like I just looked like a normal person when I took off my red eyebrows. So I would leave that on most of the time.
And what is your advice for people who would like to work in Disney entertainment?
Yeah, what I tell most everyone is just keep going to these auditions. Disney, I didn't make this up, but Disney makes dollars, not cents. As far as like the way that they cast things doesn't always make a ton of sense. You might be the perfect Tiana or Ariel or Rapunzel or whoever, and you might not make it past the type out, and they might even have seen you and been like, oh, she's the perfect Ariel, but they might have been only looking for Cinderellas that day. Like, you just never know what they're looking for, what they need, why like different casting directors prefer different things sometimes. So it never hurts to keep going back. Like, even if you keep getting rejected, like I know of a girl that I worked with who is kind of like she's like perfect for like, she's ended up being a ton of different face characters, but I think she told me she did like 40 auditions or something crazy before she was hired. So it's really just about timing, and you know, don't feel like you need to change something about yourself just to kind of fit what they're looking for. I've had a lot of people ask about like acne or moles or like something, or like crooked teeth. And I'm like, you know, honestly, like they really don't care that much. If it like, I worked with girls who were completely freckly. I've worked with girls who had moles, like, or you know, who had like bad acne, but they just covered it up with makeup. Like they don't think, it's not that detailed to where they're like, that girl doesn't have good skin, like, but she's perfect otherwise. Like they don't care that much about those things, as long as it's something that you'd be able to cover up, like if you needed to, but they really don't care about like freckles or moles. Like they don't need you to cover those up. And Disney is looking for people like to be a character performer, really to be any Disney performer, but especially character performing, you kind of have to be fearless, and just be willing to go in there and make a fool out of yourself and like be silly, be funny, and just take those big risks. Like Disney is one of those places where the bigger you go acting wise, the better, especially for character performing, because all of the characters that they're looking for you to portray are larger than life. So when you're doing that animation portion of the audition, go crazy. Give me the biggest facial expressions you can. Make your body as big as you can. Yeah, so that's probably the best advice I could give to people.
And what was your favorite princess to portray?
Rapunzel. Rapunzel is my favorite. I mean, that was the coolest show that I've ever been a part of, Disney or otherwise. And yeah, I mean, like I might have felt differently if I could have done like the full Frozen show or the full Little Mermaid show or whatever, but like doing the full Tangled show, I love Rapunzel, and I love how like graceful she is, as well as like quirky and kind of like awkward at times, and she's just so positive and well-meaning, and the songs are just gorgeous. I love getting to sing in that part of my voice, and like and to have like a beautiful love story on stage was really cool. And it's also the only princess that I ever was with Disney where I was blonde, which is funny. So it did make me feel a lot more like me, like seeing myself in the mirror. I was like, okay, this like looks like me. Like I'm blonde and she's blonde. Actually, that's a lie. I also was Cinderella on Disney Cruise Line as an understudy track, but I got to do it for like a month and a half. So she also was blonde, but Rapunzel definitely overall, I loved getting to tell her story. And there are just so many people that love Rapunzel and have a lot of connections with her, like really any Disney character. But so it's just special getting to like meet those people on Cruise Line that would come up to me after the show, or, you know, if they just see me out around the ship and stuff. And because it's different than character performing, where like if you're a character, you can't say like, yeah, I'm Rapunzel. But for main stage performers on stage, like I'm not the actual Rapunzel, I'm just telling her story. So I was able to be like, yeah, I was Rapunzel on this, you know, on stage, and just to connect with people about her story and stuff was really special.
Amazing. And you also did the Grande Mermaid. What was that experience like?
That was so fun. Tony and Lane, who directed that and who are the creators of Patty Cake Productions, I was very honored. Like I went to an open call for that basically because Ariel is one of my favorites. That was before I had really done anything with Ariel. Yeah, I went, and they, you know, they have a whole slew of fantastic little like short films on their YouTube channel and stuff. And most of the time they'll hire someone to act as the princess or the character or whatever, and then they'll have someone else record the vocals. But I went in and I was like, you know, they had the option where they're like, if you're a singer and can sing, like you're welcome to sing for us if you want. So I went in and I, did the little monologue or acting piece for them. And then I was like, I'm also a singer and I'd love to sing Part of Your World for you. And so I sang Part of Your World for them, and they loved it. And then they ended up using me as, the actress and as the voice of Ariel, which was really special. I'd never recorded music professionally like that before. So being in their recording studio and like hearing my voice played out. And I remember, I think I made them tear up when I was singing like the part of the Ariana Grande version of like Part of Your World or whatever. And that just felt really special because I was like, it was one of those times working with people that like, I felt really seen as a performer where they appreciated the work that I was doing. And I definitely appreciated the work that they were doing. Tony made all of the costumes for that and like curated all of the wigs. Like it was so well done. But I will say doing all of the underwater stuff for Patty Cake, for the Grande Mermaid was the hardest thing I've ever had to do performing wise, because before I've done that, I had never even opened my eyes underwater. So I had to like work up the courage to like jam my eyes open underwater. And then it's like, it was just challenging because like, self-explanatory, you can't hold your breath for a very long time. So I would have to go down, I have to hold my breath, but I couldn't breathe out because then it would create bubbles. So I had to go down, hold my breath, not even breathe out, get far enough down underwater, all the while they're going down with me, like to record me, get far enough down underwater, settle myself for like 2 seconds, and then mouth the line or the lyric of a song. And I had to try to remember the timing of it in my mind because we didn't have like an underwater speaker. They'd gotten one for the thing, but it didn't really work. Mouth it, and then after I finished the line, I had to stay there for another second so that I like wasn't just immediately like swimming up to the surface. But it was definitely very tough, very tiring, but so worth it. Like I just had so much fun, and it just really helped also feeling like appreciated. And they had never filmed anything underwater either, so it was a huge learning curve for all of us. Like we actually ended up doing 2 days of it. Originally we only were gonna do 1 day, but yeah, we did 1 day of it, and then they went and looked through the footage, and they were like, you know what, we want to do another day going back knowing what we know now. So we did another one, and created the masterpiece that was the Grande Mermaid.
That's amazing. Okay, so now we're getting into the song association portion.
Mm-hmm.
So your first word is dream.
A dream is a wish your heart makes.
Okay.
Is that like how I play?
Well, you're supposed to sing it if that's okay.
Oh, I sing it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm a little under the weather, so I don't know how it's going to sound. But whatever. This, I'm sure, is a judgment-free zone.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And we could go to the next one if you want to just read.
Okay, great. I'm ready. I know the rules now.
Okay. Word is love.
Can you feel the love tonight?
Nice. And next word is world.
Look at this stuff, isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Part of your world.
Ooh, okay. And next word is heart. It doesn't have to be Disney. It can be any song.
Oh, it can be any song. Okay. Yeah. What? Can you feel my heart? I feel it beating. Is that how it goes? No.
I think so.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Okay. Next word is beauty.
Tale as old as time, true as old as song, bittersweet and strange, finding you can change. Oh, I thought I was going to get to Beauty and the Beast. There you go.
Nice. Okay, and last word, burn.
Ooh, what's that word again? Burn. When's it my turn? Wouldn't I love Love to explore that shore above.
Nice.